Hi, Melissa. Hi, Brian. How are you? You're on mute.
Yes.
Hi.
Hello, sorry about that.
No worries. It always happens. It's
How
hard
are
to
you guys doing?
get that right. I'm good. Oh no, what happened here?
Ilya,
Hi.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Let me fix some things here. It's gonna get dark. Let me fix my light.
Hello, everybody. You've got a quorum, so we're good to go when you are.
okay. Well, I'm good. Let's go ahead and get started. It's 6:31. So we need to start with approving the agenda. I assume everyone has looked at it. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thanks, Jackie. A second?
Second.
Any discussion? Leah, I think I saw your hand first, and then Jeff.
I know that the objectives are for appointing the roles. I would argue that maybe we have a little more discussion before we appoint. So for example, there are some discussion of code of conduct, ethics, etc. So for example, numbers 6 and 7, maybe swap them. It's a thought, just putting it out there.
Okay, Jeff, do you have a comment?
Yeah, so I'd like to add your communication to Chris Kataki on behalf of the Planning Commission, Melissa, and also Stuart's point that at least one member of the commission has yet again, in my opinion, violated the open meeting law. So those are critical issues that should be put on the agenda.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table right now to approve the agenda as is in the second. Will there be another motion, or are we going to go ahead and vote on this motion? Brian?
Jeff, can I ask if that could be handled during the correspondence section of the meeting? Can we talk about it then, as when we decide to accept or discuss that? Right, because that's in the packet, that's in the meeting packet, or would you like a separate meeting agenda item?
Well, Brian, I'm only one vote. I just think that the commission continues to violate the open meeting law. We're not above the law. And I'd like to see us, do the right thing. Whatever you think is right, to do the right thing.
Well, I'm just asking if you want a more substantive discussion about it, what do you think the best framework for doing that is?
Yeah, so Stuart Richards, I think kudos to Stuart for trying to address the law, called us out, and we had 10 days to respond. We didn't. I'm not going to comment on the law beyond that. So I think there should be an agenda item that says, how do we comport with the law? How do we agree that we're not above the law?
Can I ask a question? Just a
Yes.
technical question. Did Stuart's email prompt a legal process, and was there a certain amount of time that we needed to respond? And if so, what were those dates? And I just don't know when that email was sent and all of that.
It's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I wasn't at the select board meeting, but Rod, was this addressed at the select board meeting?
Yes, it was addressed at the select board meeting, and the chair of the select board offered that it was not in contravention with open meeting law. No action's been taken, and my reading of Mr. Richards' correspondence doesn't make the assertion that he's filing a complaint that needs to be responded to in the 10-day time frame. So as far as I'm aware, no one in the town administration has treated this as a active open meeting law violation question.
And that, my suggestion would then be that if Jeff has a suggestion for the next meeting, that he could send it in and we could put it on the agenda for the next meeting. But it seems to me that unless something's pressing, we probably shouldn't necessarily, change the agenda beyond what we warned, just as a matter of, fair warning to everybody.
Okay, so we have a motion pending and a second. Jeff, did you have something additional to say?
What I have to say is the chair of the select board has nothing to do with what I'm suggesting. I'm hopeful that the planning commission can, on its own, address the law. And if that's at the next meeting instead of this meeting, I'm only one vote.
Okay, and Stuart, I'm going to ask that you hold off until public comment because we have a motion pending. Jackie.
Leah had a suggestion that we move the order of the agenda. And so I just wanted to remind ourselves of that.
Okay, so there were two potential changes to the agenda after we had
Mhm.
the motion and the second.
What was Leah's proposal? I was trying to get in on time and somehow.
They were well, she can speak
I
for herself.
thought, I thought perhaps swapping 6 and 7 could help with the discussion, but I see them as connected.
Okay, so does someone want to make another motion, or do we want to vote on the motion that was pending?
I'll withdraw my motion and to approve the agenda as is and move that we
Hey, point of
Swap
order,
number six
Jackie
and-
may withdraw. Once that happens, someone else, the second needs to withdraw, then we need to make another motion.
would anyone like to remove the
I
second?
think I was the second. I will
Thank you.
withdraw.
Great. Okay, good. So what I'd like to do is swap 6 and 7, as Leah suggested, and then approve the agenda as it is and handle anything under correspondence that we need to handle. Okay?
I second that.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, Brian, how do you vote, yay or nay?
Brian,
Sorry, overwhelmed by children. Am I being asked to vote?
Yes, yay or
approve the
nay?
agenda with that swap.
I'm an aye.
Jeff Goodrich,
Hey,
Leah Romano,
Yes, aye.
Jeff LaBelle,
Aye.
Melissa, nay.
And I vote yes.
And sorry, Jackie, yes.
Yep.
Okay, so the motion carries. Okay, so meeting objectives for this meeting are to appoint the planning commission chair and vice chair and to go over the planning commissioner code of conduct and ethics, which we will do in opposite order as they appear on the agenda. Next, we need to review and approve the minutes from April 13th, 2021. Hopefully everyone has had a chance to review them. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes? Jeff, thank you. Can I get a second? Jackie, thank you. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, I'll do a roll call vote. I'll start with you, Jackie. Yay or nay?
Aye.
Brian,
Aye for me as well.
Leah,
Aye.
Jeff. Goodrich. It's been a while.
Abstain.
Jackie. Abstain, Jeff LaBelle,
Aye.
and Melissa abstain because I wasn't there. Thank you. And then we need to move on to announcements, reports, updates, and correspondence. The correspondence is in the packet. I'm just going to assume everyone read it.
I'm sorry, Melissa, did we do public input? Comments?
Oh.
on that?
Sorry, that was an unintentional. Stuart, did you have comments that you wanted to make? And obviously Linda or Mary, if you wanted to as well.
Anybody, right, who wants to make? public
Yeah.
comment?
I've included Linda and Mary as well.
Are you asking if I can? Make
I
it-
saw your hand up, so
Yeah, what's up? So I had just before, since I'm not allowed to comment on the minutes or anything else until it comes to public correspondence, I just want to take note of the fact that there was an addition to the minutes that was proposed. I proposed it in writing, and that doesn't seem to have been reviewed or talked about or anything. The second point that I'd like to make is, Rod has said that there was no formal complaint. So I'll just read the first sentence or two of what I wrote to the select board and the planning commission members, and you folks were all copied on it. It says, this email is formal notice of open meeting law violations by Planning Commission Chair Melissa Horowitz and former Planning Commission Chair Jackie Allen. Seems to me that that's as formal as it can get. And I don't know how much more formal it could be. So, Mr. Francis, I don't know what you have in mind as far as it being more formal or necessary to be more formal. But the point here and I want to echo what Jeff Goodrich said, is, and this is not anything to do with a particular person. So it should not be, what I'm trying to do has nothing to do with personalities, liking, disliking, or anything of that sort. What it has to do with is violations of the open meeting law. So it's pretty clear, to me at any rate, that the open meeting law has been violated by both Melissa and by Jackie. And I'm not sure why the select board has taken the path that it's taking, and it's irrelevant actually, because the violations occurred by planning commission members. So it's up to the planning commission to react to the email that I sent to the planning commission, and I copied the select board as well. So I would appreciate it if you actually would take it up and either acknowledge that there have been violations or not, or that there have not been violations. The fact that you haven't answered the complaint is an indication that you're denying that there's been a violation. And that seems to me to be really out of order. So, I mean, you leave me no choice really but to pursue this in whatever other avenue I have to make sure that the open meeting law is honored and that it's conformed to. So.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah, thanks for hearing me out.
Okay, any other public comments at this time? Okay, hearing none, we will go ahead and proceed. There were some updates. I think, Rod, you were going to present some updates, I think. No?
Yeah, hello. In your packets, you, in addition to the correspondence from Mr. Richards, there's correspondence that is in the form of an email string initiated by the town manager for the town of Hartford and between her and Herb Durfee. There was an original email sent from by Tracy Yarlett Davis, the town manager for Hartford, and Dan Fraser, the select board chair for the town of Hartford, indicating that that they no longer wanted to participate in discussions with the Norwich School District regarding the proposal for the Marion Cross School to connect to the Hartford wastewater system. And then that was further clarified to include the statement that they did not want to have their wastewater treatment system considered as one of the options that any wastewater study undertaken by the town of Norwich would explore. So that's it.
Okay.
Great, thanks, Ron. Okay,
Well,
so.
I just wanted to ask Jeff LaBelle, anything you want to comment on the affordable housing?
Oh, before you do that, I just want to make sure, do we, I mean, I don't know if at some point, do we need to talk about the sewer study in light of that letter? Is there a place to do that in today's agenda?
I don't think there's a place specifically set aside just because we had kind of a full agenda. I mean, I have your item on there later about the neighboring town planning commissions, but I didn't, I mean, that could be, I won't speak to future agendas as we're having
Put it this way, I personally am, I think this is time sensitive, and sorry for not flagging this earlier when we approved the agenda, so maybe it's out of order, but I do think, my personal view is that we should not change our course, that we should still do our study, but I didn't know if that's something we want to talk about as a commission. And the other thing I would say is that I do think that we should, put the issue that Jeff Goodrich raised about open meeting law on the agenda for the next meeting, so we have an opportunity to discuss, Stewart's issues and determine if there's any action that needs to be taken.
Okay, I mean, as far as I know, the wastewater study is we approve that resolution. I mean, I wasn't here. I was sick last meeting, but so I don't see why that's not moving forward. If someone has, oh, sorry, Rod, do you have other information?
Yeah, as is the normal procedure for communication between the Planning Commission and the Select Board, as a subsequent to the resolution that was made at the last meeting, I wrote a memo to the town manager detailing the contents of the resolution, which is, as you know, now just been confirmed with the minutes being formally adopted. But indicating, you know, including the text of the resolution, the vote, and asking on behalf of the Planning Commission that it be forwarded to the Select Board. So my expectation is that, and maybe Mary can fill us in, but my expectation is that in the coming weeks, we should expect the item to be under consideration by the Select Board.
Mary, did you want to respond?
You're
you're
on mute.
Yes, this is of interest to me, I think to the other select board members as well, and I think we will take it up. My personal take on it is that we should move forward with a sewer study. I think it will be good information, whether or not Hartford wants to work with us or not. I don't think we've ever had a professional study done. So just my own personal take on it is yes, we still move forward.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mary. Jeff LaBelle.
Yeah, I would just ask that, you know, there be some notification to the Planning Commission members if the Select Board is going to take this up on an agenda so that we can participate in that meeting. And I think we can handle any questions that people have related to that correspondence in that context. But I certainly agree with you, Mary. So that works for me. And then my suggestion about putting Jeff Goodrich's item on the next agenda is really based on and relying on Rod's take that there's not been a formal legal complaint filed and that there has been an issue raised that we need to address, but it's not.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask that we hold off just until after we elect the chair, just because I think it's premature to talk about that until someone's actually been appointed to deal with the next agenda. Jeff Goodrich.
Yeah, I don't understand that conflation of the two issues. Fundamentally, it is my view that the Planning Commission has again violated the open meeting law requirements. And I think we should address that as soon as possible. If the Planning Commission doesn't want to do that tonight, then fine, we can do that at our next meeting. Melissa sent an email or a letter to Chris Kentucky that represented the Planning Commission. And at the end of the day, I don't know why that happened, who put it together. To me, it's wrong, and it's okay to say I was wrong. These are critical issues in terms of how we approach
Jeff,
conduct.
I'm going to interrupt you just because
I'm
we have
sorry.
an agenda.
Can I finish my statement, Melissa?
Well,
for a
I'm going to
change?
interrupt because we have an agenda. We are sticking to the agenda and we can have this discussion. Jeff LaBelle just pointed out that it would be nice to have this discussion at the next meeting. I'm more than willing to do that, but right now we have an agenda and I'd like to keep to it. So I don't think we're going to go off the agenda.
So the agenda was correspondence. You send correspondence. It would be under this section
And we
of the
did-
agenda that we could address. You can cut me off again. You can interrupt me again, but I would like to finish can I finish my statement?
Okay, you can talk as much as you want. I'm not going to respond.
I'm not going to
this
talk.
personally.
I just want to finish my statement instead of being interrupted yet again. So the question is, may we address our latest open meeting law violation, and may we address the conduct of the chair of the commission with respect to representing the commission without the commission's input? That would all be under correspondence as I understand it.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay, so I think we finished correspondence and updates. And now we'll go on to the Planning Commissioner Code of Conduct and Ethics. So I assume everyone had an opportunity to review these again as we're required to annually, I believe. Is there a specific discussion that anyone wanted to have about these? Leah.
I think one of the reasons it's important to review these documents is not just to put them up, but we are appointed and called to work to represent the town and follow such guidelines. And it's either been intimated to some of us or as a commissioner individually, or perhaps there are personal feelings that, and I'm just generalizing right now, I think it's important to review these documents to make sure that we are held accountable, and wherever we may fall short, it's a good reminder as a group, hopefully with emotions not fueled, to look where we may have fallen short and where we can correct ourselves. I personally believe the last couple of years, emotions have fueled words that have not helped this group move forward in a collaborative way to get the work done, and that we are called to do. And there are more important decisions and discussions to be had. Whether that can be fixed or changed is yet to be determined. I still think that as hard as it is to make the assumption that someone has read it and then to actually act on it are different things. It's been discussed in the past about possibly having training or retraining or expectations moving forward. I don't know if that's part of the agenda item to talk about the future of what our committee is called upon to do. I personally feel that sometimes we're biting at each other's heels, and what happens is the work is negatively impacted. And I personally don't want that to happen moving forward. Maybe that's wishful thinking. So if there is a way to review these documents or discuss key issues or just acknowledge where we may need to regroup to help the work ahead, I think that's important. So I'm just putting some personal views moving forward, especially as we are looking at organizational elections and seeing who we would like to help move us forward.
Thank you, Leah. Jackie, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, Leah, which document do you think would be most helpful here? I'm looking at our bylaws, our, the
I think,
Title
well,
1, Chapter 5, 310, the open meeting law, and I'm
It's
looking
a-
at the conflict of interest. I don't,
it's a,
is there something here we're thinking of as a code of conduct? Because that's not the name of any of these documents.
well, I agree that I think maybe the terminology of on the agenda may not reflect. I think it's a combination of all these documents, and I think perhaps, maybe
Is it
Melissa
though?
would like, but maybe Melissa would like to speak to the item on the agenda, but I recall from previous agendas, the commission here had discussed maybe an agreement of team code of conduct as a discussion item might need to be on the
Mhm.
agenda. So perhaps that was the intention. I'm not sure.
Yeah, Rod, I think that might be from past agendas, because we had discussed making a code of conduct, I believe, because I don't believe we have an actual code of conduct anywhere, correct?
No, there is no code of conduct. I think that the labeling of this agenda item was arrived at through a discussion of the commission and settlement on the wording by the commission. But there is, as you pointed out, there is no document called code of conduct. And maybe, you could approach this in different ways. One way would be to think about creating such a document, or the other one would be just to use that as some kind of umbrella term for the policies that have been enacted, which is the bylaws and the conflict of interest policy from the select board, which the planning commission is obligated to follow, which are the two documents that you were provided with for this meeting and for the previous meeting.
Great, thank you. Jeff Goodrich.
Yeah, so the select board has a code of conduct. Last time at our last planning commission meeting, I objected to the labeling I made reference to the code of conduct regardless of whether the select board members adhere to their own code of conduct. Because my own personal experience is that may not be the case. Select board has a decent code of conduct. I've sent it to planning commission members. I believe all of you have seen it. It's a very good code of conduct. Additionally, the Vermont statutes annotated talk about the role of planning commission, which relates to the law, not appointments by the select board. It would be my hope that we would embrace the VSAs as they define the role of the planning commission in its responsibilities, as opposed to whatever the transitional select board paradigm may be.
Others' response to that?
I have a question.
Mhm.
Is, to anyone's knowledge as it pertains to documents, is there any document on the docket for the select board of creating some sort of, I thought I heard somewhere that the select board is creating a document that perhaps may impact other committees. I'm not sure. So I just wanted to put that out there and ask, is anyone aware of that?
Mary?
I'm not aware of any general document that would be a code of conduct, but we are trying to improve communication with boards and committees. And we are concerned with social media and want to coordinate on that so that our town has a consistent message. So, but as far as developing a code of conduct for any committee or commission, we have not gone in that direction. I think it is worthwhile. You know, as a select board member, I have found it worthwhile that we've adopted a code of conduct. It's one page. It just kind of lays the rules out for everybody.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's like that you're operating from a simply understood set of rules is helpful, can be helpful, I think. It's not like you're going to always, you know, do everything perfectly, but I have found it helpful.
Okay, thank you, Mary.
You're welcome.
Jackie?
Yeah, we did do something like this. It was about 3 years ago, and it was just a very simple exercise. We talked about, you know, just how we wanted our meetings to be conducted, how we wanted, I don't know if anyone remembers that, but
It does say, I don't think we did much with it after.
it didn't, yeah, exactly. That was that was too bad. But anyway, we did go through the exercise, and I think it's a valuable one. And to me, it's just a simple exercise, which we just, each of us has a chance to say, you know, what's important to us in terms of how we conduct ourselves. And we make that list, and then we go talk about that list. So, you know, I'd recommend we go around the table and we each have a chance to talk about that. I think that would be helpful.
And is that something you want to do now, or?
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay.
Not
Jeff?
on the agenda.
It is on the agenda. That's what code of conduct is. That's what that means.
I'm sorry, Melissa, with all due respect, I presented the select board's code of conduct to the planning commission repeatedly. And I've asked why the planning commission will not adhere to the select board's code of conduct. So if there is a code of conduct, it's not published. There is no code of conduct that is published. So since there is no code of conduct, it cannot be on the agenda.
Okay, I'm not sure I'm following it. I'm sorry, I wasn't at the last meeting. If you did present this at the last meeting, I was not here. So I don't recall that. And I don't recall getting an email, and I'm sorry if I overlooked it. I personally just don't recall, and someone else can correct me. Jeff LaBelle.
So I see there's an agenda item today for code of conduct and ethics. So I think it's certainly appropriate to talk about a code of conduct. I think it's a good idea for us to adopt a code of conduct. So I would certainly endorse that, and I'm open to considering the select board's version, and we could look at that tonight if you wanted to, or another time, but it's on the agenda, so it's germane. I do like the idea of continuing to have more dialogue to hear what people's concerns are about the functioning of the commission. But I certainly didn't know that that was on the agenda by looking at the code of conduct / ethics as a title for the agenda item. So wonder whether we might want to, if that is a desire, be really, really clear about that. And I also wonder if we should get an outside facilitator so that there's, people feel more comfortable. But I think there needs to be more, we need to listen to each other more. I think some people don't feel listened to. And I think it's important that they be heard. I may not agree with them. I may agree with them, but everyone should be heard. And I wonder whether having an outside facilitator might make that a more productive conversation. I know Leah would be a great facilitator, but I don't know whether that's something you want to do or you want to have someone else do. But we never quite made space for this. We've kind of talked about doing it. But I do think it needs to be really clearly signaled that we're going to do that on the agenda. So it's everyone's prepared for that and has their thoughts in order. It's just my 2 cents.
I just asked one quick question. Do we have any funds to hire an outside facilitator? Rod?
The planning commission as a body doesn't have a budget of its own, but I believe that if the planning commission was to request funding support through the town manager's office and the select board, I think it would be likely to be approved. I think that the other possibility here for looking for people who could effectively moderate or moderate the meeting could be somebody that the town attorneys could identify with experience in this with background in this kind of stuff.
Okay.
VLCT would be the other organization that would come to mind.
Okay, great. I just want to clarify that. Jackie, I think I saw your hand up next, and then Leah.
I guess from my perspective, this was on the agenda at the last meeting and we didn't have time to cover it. And now it's on the agenda again. And I'm unclear why we can't just do it. I just, what do we think we were going to do for this section of the agenda? Jeff, just to help me understand, okay? When you saw this on the agenda, what did you think we were going to do?
I didn't know. Are you talking about Jeff Goodrich or?
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, Jeff LaBelle, because you were just commenting, yeah.
Oh, I had no idea what this agenda item had to do with, but to the extent that I thought it was clear, it seemed to me to talk about adopting a code of conduct, and I'm certainly happy to talk about
Right.
adopting a code of conduct. I'm personally happy to bare my soul too. I just want everyone to feel comfortable,
It's not even, it's just, yeah, I just feel like we ought to
and feel fully
this.
prepared. And it's clear that some people aren't, and I'm just
Yeah.
trying to be
Yeah.
sensitive to people. I really think we
Mhm.
should have a conversation about, people should feel and be given ample time to have their conversation, but I'm just wondering whether some structure for that would be helpful.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay.
Leah.
I think sometimes with our agendas, there's doing the work and then there's talking about the way that we do the work. And then depending on how we do it, allowing time for debriefs, so to speak. And I think one of the lessons learned from previous projects was scheduling appropriate time for debriefs, whether they're small check-ins during every meeting or every other meeting, and then a larger check-in, and really dedicating time to that as appropriate. And so when I saw this on the agenda, I saw it as kind of conflating that project of let's talk about a code of conduct. And then we also kind of started marrying it toward the election. And so what's I think happening is making an agenda item bigger than it can be. And so allowing time to spread it out over several meetings might be useful. I think, like what others have said, I think it's good to allow people to say what they think of what's working and what's not, which will help us hear how the group is moving forward with certain projects. So I'm happy to talk a little bit more, but I also think that this is something for a future topic with a clear agenda item, expectations and or homework as needed, whether we have an outside facilitator or allow space for others to just answer questions or share as needed so that we can check in.
Jeff Goodrich.
Yeah, I agree again with Leah. I'd like to see the select board's code of conduct advanced along with the VSAs. What is the role of the planning commission in the context of code of conduct for that discussion?
Okay, Jeff LaBelle.
Do we want to look at the select board's code of conduct right now? I don't know how long is it, relatively short and compact, and Rod has his hand up.
Rod.
I have the document up on my screen. It's like 1.5 pages long.
Yeah.
Comprises 11 items. I would describe it as being pretty narrowly focused on meeting procedure, and then how the select board would move forward either at a regular meeting or a special meeting. I'm happy to share it with people on the screen if you want to quickly look at it and,
Yeah.
and not, you know.
Yeah.
it's a
Let's
good
look at it.
place to start. Okay.
It may not, sounds like it's not something we could just cut and paste into ours, right? It sounds like it might need to be adapted.
This has not been presented in the packet and should be advanced to a future meeting.
It's on the agenda, code of conduct.
It's
It
on
is in the agenda, but the document has not been presented in the packet.
Is it possible to review? Is it possible to just take a look at the link and make the decision to discuss it further at a further meeting? It
I
sounds
personally
like,
would like to look at it and just to inform our future meeting agenda, like we might decide, oh, this looks great, let's talk about adopting it at the next meeting, or we might say, this isn't what we want something completely different. And I think that would be really informative to know.
Yeah, I agree with Jeff LaBelle. I think we should at least just look at it to see what it says.
does it need to be a shared screen, or if it's a link, could the link be shared in chat? Or what, I mean, however it works. To share.
I can share the link in chat, although that's probably clumsier given how long it takes to get to the town webpage, or I can just
Nope,
throw
no
it up.
problem.
What's people's preference? I can, do you
I
want me to
think
share?
it's easier just to share the screen.
Okay. Okay, there you go. Mary can probably take us through this. I'm sure she's learned it off by heart. But so just item number 1 is the meeting shall be chaired by the chair of the select board, who would be duly elected, blah, blah, blah. A majority of the select board shall constitute a quorum is item number 2. Item number 3 is there'll be time at each meeting, there'll be a reasonable time reserved for public comment concerning items not on the agenda, which the Planning Commission agenda already has. Item number 4 is each meeting shall have an agenda. And then it breaks that out into 5, I believe, well, 9 separate items, sub-items. Board members and the town manager may propose agenda items at a prior meeting or by email, subject to the approval of 2 other members. That's not something that the Planning Commission currently does. So you might want to contemplate that.
Say it again. When was that, Rod? Which number were you looking at?
4.1.
Thank you. Okay.
So currently, I believe the Planning Commission works with a fairly informal arrangement whereby individual planning commissioners suggest via email to the chair what item they'd like to have on the forthcoming agenda, and maybe it's a discussion between the chair and that planning commission member, but in my experience is that generally it goes on the agenda. 4.2 is members shall submit supporting information for inclusion by a time certain, 3 days before a meeting. Generally, packets go out earlier than that. They usually go out the Friday before a meeting, which is kind of 4 days. Chair finalizes the order of the agenda by noon, 3 business days before a meeting is 4.3. 4.4, Changes can be made by consensus or by a vote of the board at the beginning of a regular meeting. 4.5, when material relative to items on the posted agenda are submitted to the select board or town manager after the packet has been posted and deemed by the select board chair or town manager as significantly material to the consideration of the agenda item, every effort will be made to include the material in an addendum packet for that meeting, and it shall be marked as addenda and dated to clearly indicate the addition. And then it's got more details about the process of generating an addenda. 4.6, appointments and hearings may be allotted specific times. 4.7, the select board may invite members of the public, other local officials, or those who have business with the town to join them at a regular or special meeting. 4.8, those who wish to be added to the agenda shall contact the town manager in advance. 4.9, at special meetings, only those items on the agenda may be discussed. 5, all business shall be conducted in the same order as it may appear in the agenda, except that by majority consent, the chair may alter the order of items to be considered and or the time allotted. 6, public comment on issues discussed by the select board may be offered during the meeting with the permission of the chair. The select board shall apply consistent time limits to all whom they recognize to speak. I believe that the planning commission more or less follows that provision. 7, the chair shall rule on all questions of order or procedure. A majority of the board may overrule a chair as a point of order. Meetings may be recessed to a time and place certain. 9, the chair shall enforce the rules as required by 1 VSA, section 312H. 10, these rules shall be made available at all meetings, and procedures for public comment shall be reviewed at the beginning of all meetings. It shall be the responsibility of individual select board members to provide written revisions of draft condensed select board minutes to the town manager's office, blah, blah, blah. These rules may be amended by a majority vote of the select board, and such rules must be adopted annually at the organizational meeting. So I'm happy to leave it up or stop sharing. If people want to get back to a more regular screen, just let me know.
I think you can stop sharing.
Okay.
Um,
Was that the doc? So I just actually have a question for Jeff Goodrich. Is that the document that you were thinking of, Jeff?
Rod, that is the document I've circulated with planning commissions several times previously.
Yep. Okay.
Jackie,
I just want to add that, I mean, we have a bylaws that was included in our packet, the planning commission bylaws, very similar to what Rod just read. Serves the same purpose. It talks about how we organize our meetings. And so, I mean, yeah, it's very similar. And so I don't, you know, maybe we might see 1 or 2 things in there we want to add to this, but overall, I would say that we have something like that in place. So I don't know that that's going to be helpful.
yeah.
Mary, you have your hand up, yeah.
Oh, sorry, Mary. I didn't see
Yep.
that.
Yes, I think what is missing in general from that code of conduct is how we communicate with the public. And I think that is something that we're still trying to work out as a select board. For instance, we have a social media policy. We also have lots of boards and committees that they're kind of organic. And they have websites, they have communication with the public, and it's not really a unified way of messaging. So I just think that that's going to be an ongoing process to work with the boards and commissions of the town and to figure out as a select board just how that should be. And I noticed that just in the discussion of the open meeting law violations, it's sort of like, well, who should speak for the planning commission and when and how and on what platform? So we're kind of struggling with that too. And it's not reflected in that code of conduct. And it's, I think, relatively, you know, if you go way back, a traditional select board, it's not even going to be an issue. But in this age of social media, it's important. And we haven't really worked it quite out as a select board yet, but I think it's part of the conversation. So that's all I want to say about it.
Thanks. Any other ideas on how to proceed, Leah?
Sorry. So, thank you. It sounds like this might be a topic for a future meeting as well. And the possibility could be not only reviewing our documents, but how many documents do we want to follow? Are there any changes? And is there any direction we might want to take on as we review? For example, as Jeff suggested, looking at templates that already exist. And then also, as Mary intimated, looking at what might be coming down the pipeline. So it sounds like, are we looking as a group to review the documents that we follow to make sure we're following them at times when there might be disagreement, and B, do we need to change them? That's what it sounds like we're looking at. And maybe I hesitate to use the phrase working group, but it looks like maybe this is an agenda item for all of us at some point to review what we're following and then also review how we're following it. And like that catchphrase, keeping each other honest, like, let's just check in to see how we're doing. And it looks like, it's more work than just tonight. It looks like we'll be reviewing items, making sure things match. Is there anything to add? Additional discussion of templates, etc.
Any other comments? Okay, well, that seems like a good breaking point, and we can discuss, our future agendas later. But if everyone is commented out, then we can move on to what is now 7 and appoint the Planning Commission chair and vice chair. Do we normally start with vice chair or chair, or does it matter?
Chair, I think, is what we've done in the past.
Okay. So I don't really remember how we do this, but I think we just gauge interest of who's interested in running for chair. Is that correct? Any interest? I see Jeff Goodrich.
Yeah, I'd love to see Leah as our chair. I understand that she doesn't have time. I just want to make that comment.
Okay, so Leah, do you want to run for chair?
While I appreciate it, and I do believe I do a good job at this time, my personal and professional life make it difficult to do that role at this time.
Okay, so you're not running for chair.
No, and I've also noticed that Jeff Lubell is not on the call. Oh, there we go.
It looks like he's coming back.
Thank you, Jeff.
All right, we'll wait a second for Jeff. Jeff, we're looking for anyone interested in running for chair of the Planning Commission. Are you interested in running for chair? You're muted.
Has anyone volunteered?
No, no one has volunteered.
It's not something that I have on my agenda to run for chair.
All right. Is anyone jumping in, or do we? Someone, Jackie. Okay. And that doesn't mean you can't express interest, Jeff, too.
Just to be clear, so Jackie's volunteered.
Jackie has volunteered.
I just volunteer.
Okay. So no one else is interested. So I guess we need a motion to appoint Jackie as chair. Brian?
So is it, Melissa, you're not interested?
No. Thank you, though.
Thank you for your service, Melissa.
Yes, thank you, Melissa.
Thanks. So we have a motion to appoint Jackie Allen as chair of the Planning Commission. Brian, do you want to make that?
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Second?
I'll second.
Great. And I will do a roll call. All in favor?
How about discussion?
Yeah, are
Discussion.
there any questions or discussion?
Sorry. Are there any discussions or questions? Jeff Goodrich.
Yeah, I'd like to see the Planning Commission advance to a place where each individual on the Planning Commission is respected, where each individual Planning Commission member is heard, where the interruptions stop, where the planning commission decides where the planning commission is going to go, and where the planning commission does not continue to violate open meeting law, and where the planning commission actually supports the law with respect to the planning commission's role.
Great. Any other comments or discussion? I personally just would like to thank Jackie for her willingness to serve another term as the chair of the Planning Commission. I understand now what a time sacrifice and burden it can be, and I really appreciate that you're willing to do this again. I think that's just a huge commitment to the town, and yeah, I really appreciate it. So if no other comments, we'll do the roll call. Brian, how do you vote?
Yes.
Jeff LaBelle, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jeff Goodrich, how do you vote?
Nay.
Leah Romano, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And
Go ahead. Yes.
so Rod is tallying also with Ernie's absence, tallying all the numbers.
Was it a question, am I tallying the votes? Yes.
Yeah, great. Well, we haven't articulated the one for the absent, so I just wanted to make sure.
Yes. Well, actually, the way I'm recording the vote is that there's 4 votes for Jackie, 1 nay, and then Jackie abstained. So generally, when a planning commissioner is absent, we don't mark them down as abstaining from the vote. They're just not part of they're just not a number.
Thanks for the clarification. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, on to vice chair. Who would like to?
Point of order, Jackie's now the chair, right?
Oh,
Whoa.
That's right. Yep.
That's a real,
thank you for that, Jeff. I appreciate that.
Jeff to help us. That's great. All right, so now we're looking for interest in vice chair. Maybe go around the table. Do we have interest in that position? Jeff, you want to mention?
Yeah, Ernie's not here. He's the current vice chair, so I'm glad to nominate him in that capacity.
Okay. Do you have any other interest? Brian?
Yeah. I'd be happy to be vice chair with you, Jackie.
Okay.
Can I ask? a point-
Anybody else? Jeff?
No, I don't. Can I have a point of order? I mean, is it fair for somebody who is not present at the meeting to be nominated and considered? And do we need to maybe just vote up or down on Brian, or do we want to just wait until the next meeting and have the one or the other? I don't think we can both consider somebody who's not here. And
We can take one nomination at a time, Jeff, if that makes, I think we could do it that way. Okay. So we can vote on each person and see what happens. See if there's
I'm happy to wait. I'm not.
No, I'm the chair.
Yeah.
And I'm exercising my authority, okay? I just want us to be clear. And Jeff Goodrich?
Yeah, I'm glad to support Brian as vice chair as well. I said I'd be glad to nominate Ernie. I didn't do that.
Okay.
So to Jeff LaBelle's point, we
Thank
can
you.
move forward, I think.
Yeah, good. Okay. All right, so you've not, Brian has volunteered, and are there any other volunteers, or are we ready to take a vote? Okay,
Ready?
okay. All right,
Let's
Melissa?
make a motion.
Yeah,
Second.
who's making the motion? Go ahead, Leah.
I move for Brian Loeb to be vice chair of the planning commission.
Second.
Okay. Melissa, how do you vote?
Yes.
Leah, how do you vote?
Yes.
Jeff Goodrich?
Yes.
Jeff LaBelle?
yes,
Okay. And I vote yes. Okay. Great.
And I
Congrats.
abstain.
Excellent. Excellent. All right, good. We got that
Thank-
done.
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, so I think we've covered our elections. The next item on the agenda is the dialogue with neighboring town plan commissions. I didn't put this item on the agenda, so I don't know what the intent is, but maybe someone else can help me. Jeff LaBelle, you have your hand up?
Yeah, so this was something that I suggested. And it, give me 3 seconds here, if you would.
Sure.
I think it is important for us to reach out to the 4 neighboring towns and offer to have a joint meeting with each of the planning commissions. I don't think it all needs to happen immediately. I think it could be spaced out. We could do one a month or something. But let me make the case for why I think this is important. So we're in this region, we're this very small town, right? We're in this region, we have regional issues, we have shared issues. We ought to get to know each other and get to know what are the pain points for our neighbors, and what are the opportunities for working together. And I'm not saying this just because of our sewer study. That's obviously something that I think they ought to know that we're doing, but certainly I would suggest going in with like no particular agenda other than to listen to each other about what they're working on and what other issues are there opportunities. And part of the reason I suggested this is that, I don't think we should be in a position, for example, where we're surprised by the kind of email that we got from the town of Hartford, right? We ought to have been in dialogue with them. So ought to have been very clear for a long time. I mean, I had suggested even before we move forward that we should have convened a meeting with our planning commission. I just think it's such a small area. Let's just be in dialogue with each other. Let's know what's going on. Let's have people we could just pick up the phone and call. Let's have a relationship with them. And I think, I can't tell you exactly what the benefit would be, but I can't imagine it's going to be a bad thing to get to know and have it open a dialogue with our neighbors. So I would suggest that we, conduct each of them, reach out to each of them, ask for a meeting at some point in the next few months. It's about, make it optional for us, it could be informal, just a listening session, opportunity to get to know each other.
Brian Loeb?
I think it's a great suggestion, Jeff. Thank you. And I wonder, I'm sure some of us have informal relationships with some folks, but maybe I could put out a request to Rod if he can connect with the planners in each town and maybe make a formal request for a conversation and do this in as formal as a way possible. It'd be great if you could help lead on this.
I think Jeff Goodrich and then Rod.
Yeah, since our neighbors don't have staff members, I'd like to encourage the planning commission to reach out directly to each planning commission, and staff can support the effort.
Rod, you want to talk about this?
Hartford has a full-time planning staff, but as far as I'm aware, none of the other the other 3 towns do not. They're all volunteer. And I think they only have part-time zoning administrators, and I don't believe those zoning administrators have a function supporting the planning commission. So I'm happy to facilitate communication if the planning commission asks me to do that. But yeah, it would be with direct to the planning commission chair, I guess, in the instance of Sharon and Thetford, and at least, yeah.
Melissa, you had a comment?
Yeah, Jeff, do you have any concern after the email that we got from the town manager in Hartford about contacting the Hartford Planning Commission? I just was a little concerned after that email that her and Dan Fraser sent. That are we?
I guess my perspective would be that we're not asking for their collaboration on the wastewater study. We have no particular thing other than to want to establish a dialogue. I mean, to me, that email surfaced the need for dialogue.
Okay,
I think we just need to make it clear that we're not, necessarily doing it, it's not related to the wastewater necessarily. It became clear to us that it would be important for us to just dialogue with each other. And obviously, if they feel like they need to consult their select board, they can, but I don't see why the planning commission I guess the main thing would be, we would need to communicate clearly to the select, that we're not trying to go over the select board's head. We're just trying to establish a dialogue. And
okay. I would just want to be really careful because don't want to poke that bear.
yeah, the whole point is not to poke it. It's just to establish a relationship and a dialogue. And it's not, if they don't want to talk about wastewater, we don't have to talk about wastewater. I mean, I think the main thing is just to get the dialogue going. And we can say that we're reaching out to all 4 towns. Hanover, I'm surprised that Hanover doesn't have a planner, but if they don't, they don't.
Oh. Hanover definitely has a planner.
So that's one of the 4 towns I was contemplating. Okay.
Okay, so you're thinking Hanover, Hartford, Thetford,
Sharon.
and Sharon. Okay.
Aren't they the 4?
Sharon and Bedford don't.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Just to, it would be helpful for me, Jeff LaBelle, if you could like articulate some topics, like what would an agenda look like for these folks?
Yeah, sure. I think it would be helpful to hear what the pressing issues are that they're
Mhm.
working on. What are the issues that their town is facing? What are their planned activities in the upcoming year or two? And do they, it might be, we could talk about maybe affordable housing as a shared challenge that we all face.
Mhm.
But we're open to hearing from them about what they're facing. And I think it's really just an opportunity to listen, and we would be happy to share kind of what we're working on and what issues we're facing. And,
Mhm.
to the extent that there are issues that emerge spontaneously as useful for further conversation, we could have dialogue about at the end about whether there are any,
Okay.
future, items for discussion, but it doesn't have to be. I just like,
Mhm.
who
Sure.
knows, like maybe Thetford
And
is
it-
also working on a wastewater study and we have no idea. And maybe
Okay.
we should be partnering. I mean, I have no idea what people are working on.
Just from your experience on Two Rivers, do these things come up at Two Rivers or?
My
No?
experience is that the Two Rivers agenda is very tightly controlled by the staff. They have
Mhm.
very specific needs that they have
Mhm.
for, making sure that their budget gets approved and that,
Mhm. Mhm.
if there are new programs that, that happens and that there's a
Yep.
new board. But I have not personally, I've been to a handful of meetings and there's never been this sort of informal dialogue, among neighboring towns, except when I sat next to Lori at one of the dinners and we chatted about,
Mhm.
informally, but that
Okay.
happens very rarely.
Okay. Leah, you had a question or a comment?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I'm just gonna play devil's advocate in a way, or kind of ask question of just making sure that we're clear in how we're communicating our request. It sounds to me like an informal neighboring town bridge building with an aim for more. Because one question I had is, if it is interpreted incorrectly, they could say, sure, just attend our meetings and you'll hear what our focus is on. So it sounds like it's not just hearing what they're doing, it's having that engagement. That's what I'm hearing, because what I want to avoid is have them saying, we'll just read our minutes.
So can I guess, are you asking for feedback on
Yeah.
that? Or we
Yeah.
just-
Go ahead, Jeff. Yeah. Let's have a dialogue.
So,
here.
we can go to their minutes and we'll know what's on their agenda currently, but that won't tell us what their strategic goals are for the next year or two. It won't tell us what their plans are, for the next year or two. It won't tell us what they think the common agendas are. I mean, it's not just like, yes, we could read their minutes. We want to build a relationship. We want to get to know them. We want to share what we're working on. We want to hear what they're working on. We want to identify opportunities for future dialogue, because we're all one region and we share a whole range of issues. And
I wholeheartedly agree. I just don't want there to be misinterpretation in the invite. That's all.
Jeff Goodrich?
Yeah, my experience as a commissioner with Two Rivers and the alternate was that folks were desperate to embrace what Jeff Lubell just said.
Hmm.
And in that context, I want to encourage us not to think about east, west, north, south, but also the diagonal context of Lyme, Lebanon, Pomfret, Stratford. Stratford folks drive through Norwich every day. And think about a broader community. As one who's invested in corporate counsel with Vital Communities, I think there's a big need to think about things in the context of what Jeff Lubell just said, which is let's see ourselves in a broader context and how do we all interface in that context.
So I'm going to recognize myself here for a minute. Is there any opportunity to influence the Two Rivers agenda and ask for this kind of time? So that, I'm just wondering, or this kind of a forum, or you don't see that, Jeff, from your experience. Yeah, go ahead.
I think there's two issues. One is
Mhm.
we'd have an uphill battle trying to get enough time on the agenda to make it a meaningful dialogue.
Mhm. Okay.
Number two, I think we really want this to be, we really want to be in dialogue with people who are our neighbors, and that takes some time. And
Mhm.
having a big open forum with 60 different communities, and
Mhm.
everyone gets 3 minutes to and then you're like, what do you do at the end, right? Whereas, we sit down with, Thetford for an hour, and
Mhm.
they take 20 minutes and we take 20 minutes and we take 20 minutes for discussion and we're done. And we now know a bunch of people that are our neighbors. We may have
Mhm.
identified common issues. I mean, the opportunities for advancing a shared agenda are much, much greater in a
Mhm.
bilateral context than they are in some,
Yeah.
it's like going to the United Nations and trying to get anything done. I mean, you're much better off with bilateral negotiations.
Yeah. So breakout groups would be more important. Rod, you were going to say something? You're on mute. Yeah.
Oh, just that, yeah, there are 30 towns in the Two Rivers region. And,
Too many.
there's a lot of geographical difference and separation between, say, Randolph, which is the most western town, and
Mhm.
say, Norwich and Hartford. So I think Jeff LaBelle's comments are apt, that it's just the main, they happen most months. The sort of monthly general meeting is not really a format to encourage that, but there may be a purpose or a way to utilize Two Rivers staff to facilitate some of the issues that come out of the dialogue
Okay.
that
Okay.
is generated, I guess.
So Jeff LaBelle is as the next step here. Do you want to, you've heard, I guess, this discussion. Do you want to come back to us at the next meeting with more thoughts formed on how this might play out? Brian, you had a comment?
Yeah, I mean, I feel pretty comfortable with the vision Jeff has.
Mhm.
And I want to return to my earlier request. And I don't know if it takes a motion of this
Mhm.
group or not, but to request that at the next meeting, we ask Rod to bring us the names of people from each of the towns who we can then design a plan around reaching out
Mhm.
to. I think I know enough about what Jeff is
Mhm.
proposing, and it'll take more form as we start to have these conversations.
Okay. Does that sound good to folks? Jeff Goodrich?
Yeah, I would prefer to see Jeff reach out in that context, given his role as a resident of this community.
I think Brian's suggestion was that Rod would bring back the names, right, of the people, and then we could decide how we want to proceed.
Mhm.
So maybe just gathering the contact people, the chairs of each of the planning commissions and the names of the planners. But I think this can be pretty informal. I think,
Mhm.
someone can reach out, whether it's me or Jackie or Rod and whoever, and just say we'd like to get to know them and anyway, I see Leah has her hand up, so I didn't mean to interrupt.
Leah?
Well, along those lines, what Jeff mentioned, is there a need for the planning commission to review text or either ahead of time or on the day of the next meeting? Or just in trust, which is, I'm just putting up all the options. It sounds like
Is
we're
it-
not, there isn't a request to review text, which is equally fine.
Text, you said? Text?
You mean like the text of an invitation and email?
Yeah,
If people feel a need to do that, I'm happy to put a draft together, but I'm also happy to say, this is not so complicated that we need a motion, it's just like, we can
No.
just decide that we want to do it.
Jeff Goodrich, yeah.
Yeah, one-on-one outreach doesn't violate the open meeting law.
Okay. Okay. So I think where we're at then, Rod will research contact information for us, and I guess we can all give some more thought to this, and yeah, maybe think about what we want to accomplish with it. I think will be helpful. Rod, go ahead.
Just to get clarification, so there was an immediate suggestion to do from Jeff LaBelle to do Sharon, Hartford, Hanover, and Thetford. So that's 4 towns. And then there was an additional concept of going broader. Just for the sake of getting my instructions clear, am I doing the 4 or am I doing the bigger group?
Jeff LaBelle?
Yeah, my suggestion is that we start with the 4 that are our neighbors, and that if it goes well, we can selectively expand it to the other towns. But I don't want to overreach and commit ourselves to 8 meetings, and we're not quite sure how it's going to work. But I like the idea. Ultimately, I think probably meeting with Lebanon would be a really good thing, and a few of these other ones. But
Okay, Leah?
I like that suggestion to start with the 4 and then if positive move, or even if negative, move on to the other towns.
Okay. Okay, under other business, I have one thing. Does anybody else have anything else before I talk about my thing? Okay. I just wanted to mention, I was interested in the select board goal setting process and attended their last meeting on that. And as I think Mary pointed out a little bit in her remarks, one of the topics that has come up is the town committees and coordination among the committees, and just awareness of what the town committees are working on. How can the select board interact most effectively with those groups? If you all recall, in our town plan, at the end of the town plan, with all of the action items, we assigned these action items to the different committees, like the historic preservation or the conservation or the energy committee, to name a few. And in most cases, it was, well, in many cases, it was more than one committee. They were assigned together to work on things. But I wanted to, I've got that chart out again. I was using that chart to meet with the different heads of those committees more actively before COVID, but there's been a little bit of follow-up since COVID. In any event, I want to send that chart to the select board just to remind them that we have that resource in terms of guidance for committees and key objectives to be working on. The committees are working on other things, but they know that, they have these particular objectives, and it's a good resource, I think, for all of our town, that we have that song sheet, if you will, to refer to. So I didn't want to surprise anybody. I just want to let you know I'm just taking that existing resource and sending off to the select board. Jeff Goodrich?
Yeah, I think what I perceive as the principle of what you're saying, Jackie, is a good idea. but I'd like to see the planning commission take that initiative. I don't think we need the select board support. And I'd like to see somehow we discuss this to assign members of the planning commission to do that outreach. We don't need staff. We don't need the select board. We can just begin to engage as a commission in the
Oh,
context
yeah.
offered.
I agree. Yeah, no, definitely on that score, Jeff, definitely. All I'm saying is, I don't even expect I don't expect the only follow-up on the part of the select board is to create awareness that the different committees do have these objectives. Some of the discussion that they were having, they weren't all sure what the committees were working on, where were the committees getting direction, and that, that was a little bit of the discussion. And so I thought it would be helpful if to just build awareness. But yes, I do agree. I think it's upon us to follow up with those committees for the town plan objectives. And I think that should be, by the way, an agenda item for next time we meet, which is our next item on the agenda. So what we have, the things I've been collecting in this meeting, I've got open meeting law. And I've got,
Leah had her hand up, by the way, Jackie. I don't know if you
oh
saw.
yeah,
it.
okay, sure, go ahead. Yep.
So on a related, thank you. So on a related topic to what you just mentioned, Jackie.
Yep.
For a while now, we've had you've represented the town plan, like action items as an agenda item to
Yep.
represent and call out. And so it
Yes.
sounds like related to what you've just mentioned, in addition to an update to the select board, either as an agenda item and or members of the planning commission or one member is responsible for double checking how are we doing with
Yeah.
regard to the town plan. It sounds like it's a standing agenda item.
Yes, yeah, very much so, very much so. Okay. Okay, town plan action items, and we want to talk about this outreach to other planning commissions. Jeff Lubell, you had your hand up, hang on, go ahead.
So we're going to talk about the issues that Stuart raised, right, as the open meeting law at the next meeting?
Yeah, I've got that, and
Okay.
I guess, right, okay,
And then I just
Yeah.
also, we had talked about having a meeting where we listen to people and give them an opportunity to share any issues or concerns that they have about the way that we've been operating.
Is this the code of conduct discussion? Is that, do you want to call it that, or you want to call it
I
something else?
definitely don't want to call it code of conduct. We just had that question. Why don't,
Isn't it a
What?
debrief?
why
What do
don't
you want to call it?
Sorry.
why don't we call, maybe, what if we called it a listening session, for members of the planning commission or something like that?
Okay.
I think
all
we
right.
just need to
Do
listen
we
to
have
each other
other
and hear each
ideas?
other.
Jeff Goodrich, you want to chime in here?
Yeah, to build on what Jeff Lubell said, I've asked repeatedly for more than the last year to talk about how we conduct our business as a planning commission. Separately, I'd like to see on the next agenda the introduction of the select board's code of conduct. I would also like to see the introduction of, again, the Vermont statutes annotated with respect to the role of the planning commission, which frankly has nothing to do with the select board.
I'm not sure I got all that, Jeff. So the select board code of conduct, didn't we just review that? Wait, you're on mute, so I don't know what you mean.
Thank you. I'd like to see that code of conduct published so that we can all contemplate the select board's code of conduct.
Okay,
We already have our bylaws. I'd like to see the Vermont statutes annotated with respect to the responsibilities of planning commission in the same packet. This is a
Uh-huh.
non-political, it's a legal thing. And I think that's it, right?
okay, and we all promised to read it all, right? Okay, good. All right. All right, so there's a request for some documentation in the package. I think the agenda item I heard Jeff Lubell suggest was PC listening session. Are we all gonna know what that means a month from now? Hands are up. Leah, is that a hand or no? Okay. Jeff Goodrich?
Yeah, we have asked, I think repeatedly, and I've talked to Leah about this a bunch of times and others. What do we think about the way the planning commission conducts itself, the role of the chair, the role of staff? I don't know how to define that, but it may be how the planning commission conducts itself. That listening session has not occurred in the last year.
Okay. All right, got it. Stuart, I'll get to you in a minute. We're gonna get to public comment. Is that okay? We're just working through our agenda.
I'd like to
Is-
make a point with regard to your agenda.
mhm.
And also take note of the fact that Tom Cannon was part of this meeting for a while. And it would have been, it would have been helpful, I think, if you had noticed that he had joined the meeting, to have allowed him to talk about what the Marion Cross Schools future plans are in
This
connection.
meeting? Tonight you're talking about?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
I'm sorry, I didn't notice that he was there. I
He
didn't
was one
notice.
of, he was one of the participants. He hung out for a while
Mhm.
and nobody recognized him as his being present, but I think he could have contributed to a discussion about what's going on with the town of Hartford, and you've already
Mhm.
covered that, but
Mhm.
what the future steps are for Marion Cross. And
Mhm.
you, in the past, have discussed working with the school board to try and accomplish some mutually acceptable things. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that he was part of the meeting. Well, he was present and part of the meeting for a while.
All right, well, thanks for pointing that out. Yeah, Jeff Goodrich?
Yeah, I don't think the planning commission missed anything, and I mean that with respect to Stuart. While Tom was online, he could comment as a member of the public. So to Stuart's point, to the extent the planning commission wants to embrace the question of what is the school district doing, that could be an issue on the docket.
Could be for the next agenda,
Right, okay.
if you wanted it to be.
Okay, Jeff LaBelle?
Yeah, I do think we should put on the agenda, if we could, any follow-up related to wastewater.
Okay,
So in other words, what did the PC do? What is our response?
yeah,
And we might want to ask the school board for an update.
Yeah.
I attended their meeting a few days ago, and heard what they're up to. And so, I mean, and it boils down to they're continuing to investigate a bunch of options, including Dresden Fields and some neighboring properties.
Yep.
And they thought they would have more information by the next meeting.
Okay.
So it might be useful to check back in and maybe
Yeah.
invite him to come so that we get an update
Sure.
on
Okay.
what their needs are.
And their next meeting, Jeff, is in June? Is that when, what's the timing? Do you know?
June 2 is their next meeting, Jackie.
It's
Thank
always
you.
before ours, so, and they promised their test pit results. Can I just also say, I don't know when the right time is, but I would really like to know, like, what is our next big thing? Like, obviously, the
Mhm.
wastewater study would be great to get done, but what
I
are we
know.
trying to do? Like, do we
I agree.
have zoning amendments? What's, like, we spent a
Mhm.
lot of time talking about how we work as a committee, et cetera, but like,
I know.
we made a decision about the wastewater, that's good. So like, but
Mhm.
that's gonna take a while to play out. What are we doing in the meantime?
Yep. We have our list of things we're supposed to get done, and the timing of them from the town plan is one source. And we have taken steps to tackle the big ones, but yes, I think we should revisit that for sure. Thank you, Jeff, for suggesting that. I think that's a good add. Okay.
Brian has his hand.
Go ahead, Brian.
Sure, I heard the suggestion to put the open meeting law question on the agenda, and it'd be great to just talk quickly about what that would look like.
Thank you. Mhm.
As opposed to, like, I don't think it's helpful to just have time reserved for us to argue about whether or not it was a violation.
Mhm.
That doesn't seem that helpful to me, without some outside resource or some background information, or I don't know. It just doesn't seem like the best use of time. And so it's not to say that the issue is not important or it doesn't deserve to be on the agenda. I think we need to give more thought to how it takes up that space in the agenda.
Jeff LaBelle.
Well, I think that's a good question. I think the issue, as I understand it, is that a member of the public has raised a question about whether our conduct violates the law. If it violates the law, then we're I believe, have a duty to take corrective action. And so the question is whether we need to take any corrective action. Now, if we think it would be helpful to get legal advice to help us inform that decision, I have no problem with that. But I do think we need to make a decision about whether we think there was a violation, and if so, whether there's corrective action that's needed. And I just think we need to put that, I don't see how we can ignore it. I mean, maybe we can, but I'm not quite certain how that would work.
Jeff Goodrich?
Yeah, so something changed in the last select board election cycle from my perspective. I'm not sure I really care about what attorney the select board hires. They can engage 12 and we get, 43 opinions. The broader issue is prior to this last cycle, when we were called out, and we were, by Stewart and others, on a number of occasions for violations, we simply said, you're right. We're going to own it and we're going to correct it. In the context of what has transpired recently, I think that's a simple fix. I'm not saying negative or positive. I'm not judging anyone's heart, but I can simply say what occurred, in my opinion, is an open meeting law violation. I would simply like to acknowledge it, say, we made a mistake again. We're going to strive to not do that going forward.
Well, addressing my part of it, I don't think it was a public meeting violation. Chris Katuki wrote something on his blog that misrepresented what happened at the meeting. I wrote something to Chris Katuki on my behalf, and said, this is where I think you got it wrong. Chris Katuki acknowledged that it was written on my behalf and that was clarified, and that was the end of it. So that's where I do not think it was, I didn't share it with anyone. But I'm not going to, get in a big argument about it. And that's what I'm trying to avoid, because I understand Stewart feels differently, but that's what happened.
Yeah, and it's my understanding as well is when, things go on in the press and there's an opportunity to comment, that's the chair's prerogative. And I know, Jeff, I know you disagree. I understand that, but I feel like you have acted in that role when you were chair. And
Never.
So,
Never. So I've raised my hand,
yeah.
Jackie. So may I
Yeah.
address what Melissa said?
of course, yeah, you don't have to get mad at me. Just go
I'm
ahead.
not mad at you. You may project all you like. So I do not believe that Melissa violated the open meeting law. That is not my presumption. I think Melissa's conduct is against the policies and ethics of our role, but that's a separate issue. And I'd like to see that on a
Okay.
future meeting.
Okay.
I think your response, Jackie, to the group is the violation of the open meeting law. And I think we simply need to say, we did it. It's wrong. We're going to strive not to do that going forward.
Yeah, I was appealing to someone's humanity is all I was doing. I didn't see any public harm. And, I was just,
I'm not above the law.
Yeah.
Let us not be above the law, please.
it just feels, let's work on important issues, I guess is my perspective on it. It seems, it just feels like there's a hammer being used here over and over and again. And I just don't think it's having the right effect. Let's
So as a point
let's
of
wait
order,
for something
this is
important
part of the
to put this
conduct of
hammer
the
on.
planning commission, I think is
Yeah.
inappropriate. Let's put it on a future agenda item and let's not say words like hammer. Let's not describe people derisively. Let us put it on a future agenda and discuss it in an amicable, collegial fashion, please.
Mhm. Melissa, you'd like to talk?
Yeah, Jeff, I'd just like you to recognize how you're talking to Jackie right now as well. Like, she approached you in a civil manner and you escalated it. And
Not my intent, Melissa.
Excuse
I'm
me?
simply trying to say, as we're deviating from the agenda
Mhm.
with interruptions and other things, let us get back to the agenda. Let us speak to one another without saying derisive remarks like hammer when a concerned citizen says, look, open meeting law matters.
And the tone matters too. Tone
It
matters too.
does.
What we're trying to get at here, the reason that we're
Tone,
talking
Jackie,
about,
let's move on, please.
we
Tone.
are, we're
I
trying to
can
move on.
challenge your tone. I can challenge Melissa's tone. I can sit here and do the same thing you're doing all night. Let's move on.
What we're trying to get at here is, what are we going to accomplish by having open meeting law on the agenda next time? That's what we're trying to figure out. Okay, what will we accomplish?
The answer
has
is
his
let's
hand
adhere
up.
to the open meeting law.
Excuse me?
Brian
Okay.
has his hand up, has had his hand
Yeah,
up for a
Brian.
while.
Yeah, without regard to the merits of any of these points, I don't think this conversation is helpful or gets us
Okay.
anywhere. And so my suggestion was, if it's going to be on the agenda, we need to have it in a more structured way where there's a desired outcome, like a vote on a motion that says we acknowledge it or not, or something like we need to wrap something around this, because this conversation could go on forever and just no one is learning by this conversation.
Leah, I think you were first, and then Jeff
Thank
LaBelle.
you. I agree with Brian. I'm a fan of sub bullets to either acknowledge documents or resources we need to review to help the discussion, and or some outcomes that we need to have, whether it's an acknowledgement of something. That's my personal view, that sometimes when drafting the agenda, helping provide context to what the agenda item is helpful.
Okay, Jeff LaBelle.
So I would suggest that we have several specific, make several determinations at the next meeting. So one is, do we think there was a violation of the open meeting law? And if so, is there any corrective action that's needed? So that's one very specific thing.
Okay,
I do think that we should also address the question of what guidance do we want to provide to planning commission members about correspondence, and the use of stationery or titles or statements that say that I'm only speaking for myself and not on behalf of the planning commission. I mean, it's sort of boilerplate, but
sure.
I think we should, and then I would say similarly, we should address, the third question would be, what guidance should we give to planning commission members about emails that are sent around to, a quorum of the planning commission? Just so we have some clarity about, if you ask me, I don't think it was a big deal. I don't think it was a public, open meeting law violation, but we probably should try to avoid, that. And I think we could say that. And maybe we could put that in something like a code of conduct or something like that. I don't know if there was like some formal thing that, that something could be like, in correspondence with members of the public, members of the planning commission should make it clear they're speaking only in their individual capacity, right? Not in any official capacity. Or something like that, just so there's clarity, so that Melissa knows for the future, and for the future, and I know for the future, and we all know kind of what's expected of us. We don't make a federal case of it. We just try to be really sort of clear.
So I think that's a good suggestion, Jeff. Was there a violation? We'll discuss that. We all have an opinion. Let's get them out there, and then guidance on the way forward. I think that's good. And any corrective action. So that's a good way to frame that agenda item. Okay, thanks. Anything else on the agenda? We got a lot. I think we have enough topics. And with that, Stuart, did you want to do a public comment here?
Yes, yes, please.
Great.
So there
Go for
are two points that are relevant. One is that the official notice, it wasn't sent certified mail, but it was sent as an official notice. That was sent to the Planning Commission and the Select Board on April 26th. The statutes say that you need to acknowledge any violation within 10 days. So there's been no response from either the Select Board or the Planning Commission within 10 days. So you're essentially out of time. The second and last point that I'll make before I sign off and I'll get out of your hair is that it's incumbent upon planning commissioners to not use planning commission stationery and state that they're the head of the planning commission when they send out a comment to other people, to the public or to somebody. In this particular instance, Melissa, and I mean no disrespect, Melissa, I just think that you've made a wrong move. So by using planning commission stationery and representing that she is sending something on behalf of the state, on behalf of the planning commission, without actually having had that discussed in a public meeting, that is what constitutes a violation, in my opinion. So, and thanks for hearing me out. And I hope that you correct this and keep people from violating the open meeting law, both not only Melissa, but also you, Jackie. And I mean no disrespect, but I think you need to follow the statutes. So have a great night. Take
Okay.
care.
Great. Okay, any other comments from the public? Okay, hearing none, do we have, our next meeting is, it's actually June 8th, right? I think it said June 15th on one of the agendas. Rod, can you confirm that at our next meeting?
It's June 8th
All
on
right.
my calendar.
June 8th is on the calendar, but I'm just,
On
It
my
should be-
calendar.
I had a
It should be
copy of an
June 8th.
agenda that had the wrong date on it. Why,
My
but-
apologies, it should be June 8th.
Move to
Okay.
adjourn.
Do we have a second? Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Hey,
Uh,
and our next meeting is on Zoom still, Rod? Are we ever going to go back to town hall?
No. There's no indication of when there'll be a return to Tracy Hall.
Well, stay tuned. That may change someday.
Just wanted to say thanks again, Melissa, for all your service.
Yeah.
And really, really
Yeah, really.
appreciate it. And
Really, yeoman's
thank you.
work.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Melissa.
Thanks.
Mhm.
all right,
Yeah.
take care, guys.
And thank you, Jackie and Brian, for taking the baton.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much.
Okay,
Yeah,
All
thanks a lot, guys.
all right. I really appreciate it. Have fun.